Ostriches aren't dumb, here's why they're smarter than you think. For decades, the ostrich has been at the center of wild rumors, exaggerated tales, and full-blown myths that make it seem like a feathered oddball of the animal kingdom. But this enormous, flightless bird of the African plains is more than just a punchline or a curiosity in a zoo. It's a survival machine, a speed demon, a serious fighter, and maybe most importantly, it's deeply misunderstood. Let's set the record straight and break down some of the most popular myths about ostriches, exposing what's real and what's pure fiction, American style, straight talk with no fluff. Let's start with the most famous myth of all: ostriches bury their heads in the sand when they're scared. You've probably seen this gag in cartoons or heard people use it as a metaphor for avoiding problems. But here's the truth: ostriches do not bury their heads in the sand. Ever. It's not a thing. This myth likely started because ostriches often lower their heads to the ground to turn their eggs or to blend in with the dry savanna grass when danger is nearby. From a distance, it might look like their heads are disappearing into the earth, but in reality, they're very much alert and ready to bolt. Another classic myth: ostriches are dumb because their brains are smaller than their eyes. While it's technically true that an ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain, that doesn't mean they're brainless. In fact, ostriches are incredibly observant and have great survival instincts. They're smart enough to recognize threats from miles away, can remember specific paths and territories, and even learn to associate certain people or patterns with danger. That's not just survival instinct, it's intelligence. The comparison with eye and brain size is funny, sure, but it's not the full story. There's also this wild claim floating around that ostriches are too stupid to care for their young and will abandon their eggs at the first sign of trouble. That couldn't be more wrong. Ostriches are actually very protective parents. Male ostriches play a huge role in incubating the eggs, especially at night. Their dark feathers provide excellent camouflage in the dark. Females, with their sandy plumage, take over during the day. Ostriches are one of the few bird species where males actively help raise chicks. And if predators threaten the nest, both parents will confront the intruder, sometimes even faking an injury to draw attention away from the eggs. They're defenders of territory. In a world full of four-legged hunters, this two-legged beast has carved out its own space, and keeps it with force if necessary. In the grand arena of nature, the ostrich may not be the lion, but it's a fighter in its own right. And sometimes, when the dust clears and the feathers settle, the one left standing isn't the predator. It's the bird. The ostrich doesn't just survive, it dominates in its own way. That's the real truth about the ostrich: underestimated, underrated, and absolutely unforgettable when it comes to battle. Now I explain. Now, how about this one: ostriches can't defend themselves and rely only on running away. People think that because ostriches can't fly, they're helpless. But ask anyone who's worked on an ostrich farm or had a close call in the wild: ostriches can fight, and they're absolutely lethal when they need to be. One solid kick from an ostrich can break bones. Their sharp claws can tear skin. If an ostrich feels cornered or if their chicks are in danger, they will charge, they will kick, and they will win. In fact, even lions and hyenas think twice before tangling with an angry ostrich. One myth that's more recent but still spreads fast on social media is that ostriches are basically friendly, goofy pets that love human interaction. This one is half true. While ostriches are curious animals and can sometimes be raised around people, they are still wild creatures. Even ostriches raised on farms can suddenly become aggressive, especially during mating season. They're territorial, unpredictable, and incredibly powerful. They're not built for cuddles. They're built for speed and survival. Treating them like oversized backyard birds is asking for trouble. Then there's the idea that ostriches can't survive outside of Africa. That's definitely not true. While they are native to the African savanna and desert regions, ostriches have been successfully farmed all over the world, including the United States, Australia, and parts of South America. They're highly adaptable, as long as they have space, food, and warmth. In fact, some U.S. farmers raise ostriches for meat, feathers, and leather. These birds don't just survive, they thrive in places far from their native land, proving once again that the myth of the fragile exotic bird doesn't apply. Here's another persistent myth: ostriches are silent creatures. People think they're mute just because they don't chirp like songbirds. But the truth is, ostriches can be surprisingly vocal. Males produce a deep, booming call during mating season that can echo across the plains. It sounds almost like a distant lion's roar. Chicks chirp and peep, and adults hiss when they feel threatened. So yes, ostriches do have a voice, and they know how to use it when they need to. Let's also put to rest the idea that ostriches are slow or clumsy because of their size. That one's just ridiculous. Ostriches are the fastest birds on land and among the fastest animals in the entire world. They can hit top speeds of 45 miles per hour, with strides up to 16 feet long. Their two-toed feet are like nature's high-performance running shoes, built for long-distance travel across hot, rough terrain. Watching an ostrich run is like watching a feathered Ferrari tearing through the desert. Some people even believe a myth that ostriches don't live very long, assuming they burn out quickly due to their size and energy. Not true. In the wild, an ostrich can live up to 30 to 40 years. In captivity, with proper care, they can live even longer. These birds are not short-lived flukes, they are long-term survivors that have been around for millions of years. Fossils show their ancestors roamed Earth long before humans did, and they've adapted beautifully across centuries of climate changes, predators, and habitat shifts. Finally, here's a funny but false one: ostriches are descendants of dinosaurs and might be mini T-Rexes with feathers. Now, there's a grain of truth here. Birds in general are considered the closest living relatives to dinosaurs. And yes, ostriches, with their powerful legs and dinosaur-like stride, do give off prehistoric vibes. But they aren't mini T-Rexes. They're more like the distant cousins of raptors and other theropods, having evolved over millions of years into the unique birds we see today. So, while the image of a feathered dino strider is fun, science says the connection is more subtle than Hollywood would have you believe. At the end of the day, ostriches don't need myths to make them cool. The facts alone are incredible. They're huge, fast, smart, and powerful. They're caring parents, fierce defenders, and perfectly tuned products of evolution. The real ostrich is more impressive than any cartoon version or tall tale. So next time someone cracks a joke about an ostrich sticking its head in the sand or calls them dumb birds, you'll know better. You'll know that behind those long legs and big eyes is a creature that deserves a lot more credit, and a whole lot of respect. In captivity, with proper care, they can live even longer. These birds are not short-lived flukes, they are long-term survivors that have been around for millions of years. Fossils show their ancestors roamed Earth long before humans did, and they've adapted beautifully across centuries of climate changes.